Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 79 of Fraternity Foodie. I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. We call these episodes Fraternity Foodie because there is nothing like great food to bring people together, especially when we get together over a warm and cheesy mac and cheese. The people have spoken. All of our listeners, they want to hear from my next guest, Tina VanSteenbergen. Tina speaks on college campuses all over the country, and she tears down the house. She is one of the best on the circuit, and I know because I've seen it. I know when I see extraordinary talent, and Tina is it. Tina knows that women need women to be successful, to feel understood, to feel less alone. And Tina gives women permission to open up, to have honest conversations with each other, and to connect with each other. Tina's work sets her soul on fire. Welcome to the show, Tina.
Hey, Mike, I know you like run a business and also are a speaker, but do you just want to travel the country and introduce me everywhere I go?
I would love to. I would have so much fun doing it. You have no idea. But I do have this whole business thing.
Right, you're like running a business and have children and a family, you know, all those other things. Who needs it? Come on, let's go on the road. Let's do it.
I would love to
on
go
the road.
I
mean, my apartment in Minneapolis. That's what I mean by on the road. That's where we are right now.
Okay. I can do that for a little while, but then my family's going to be like, where did Dad go?
That's fair.
Just hanging out with James and Tina.
Yeah.
And
Hang out with James and Tina. You can bring the kids. We got lots of stuff to do around. We got a dog. Come on.
I'm going to bring the kids. I'm going to bring my cat. I'm bringing everybody.
So, bring the menagerie. Let's go.
So, as you know, we just had your amazing husband, James, on the show, and we laughed. We learned so much because during normal times, we would just pass each other in the hallways at these conferences, giving presentations at all these like weird side rooms. We would never actually have the time to sit down for a cup of coffee or maybe a bourbon in your case. And now we have the opportunity to slow down for a minute, to invite thousands of people through the power of the internet. And we can ask you the questions that we've always wanted to ask. So I'm so happy that we have this time together.
I'm excited too. And I'm so glad that you've already had my husband here, because it means you got a really great glimpse of what my life is like every single day. So you're already, we've covered a lot of ground already. If you've spent an hour with James, you know a lot about my life.
We have. And for our listeners that haven't seen that interview with James, I would strongly recommend you go back and download that and watch that, because then this interview with Tina is going to make so much more sense to you.
Yes, that's 100% true. And then maybe you'll get on our bandwagon that we just think it's time for a reality TV show, you know?
I love it.
Let's get
you know, everybody would tune in for that reality TV show, by the way. I mean, the listeners, the watchers, I mean, it would be off the charts. Get us into that new house of yours.
We think we're hilarious and adorable, and our house is also wonderful. So we think we're ready to go. I'm not sure the rest of the world will get on board, but we think we're delightful. So
I'm ready. I'm ready to go. All right. So I have a bunch of questions here for you. I've been dying to ask you. We've just never had the time. Yeah. So you went to Hamline University in St. Paul, Minnesota for your undergraduate experience. So why Hamline?
It's a great question. Fun fact, it's actually pronounced Hamlin, which I didn't know.
Okay, there you go.
My first 3 years of high school. So fun fact, I'm a first generation college student. And so college was this sort of unknown entity, but also a thing I knew I very much wanted. I was one of those kids that was over high school before high school really even started. Like I was ready to go to college then, because I was like, ugh. High school. So ready to go to college, but I had no idea what that looked like, felt like, would be like in real life. And then I was given a leadership scholarship in high school and went to my first ever leadership conference. And I was a sophomore in high school, and it was held on Hamlin's campus. I grew up 30 minutes away from Hamlin, and it was the first time I ever set foot on a college campus. And I was looking around at these buildings, and summertime, so the campus was beautifully groomed. There were flowers everywhere, and students who were studying, and faculty, and a bunch of people that didn't look like me. And I was like, if this is college, I gotta go. Like, this is it. This is exactly what I want it to be. And then for the rest of my high school time, even when I started doing a lot of research about college, that picture just really stuck in my brain, that experience that I'd had on that campus. And so even as I was applying to all these other places, I was like, doesn't matter, I'm going to Hamlin. Doesn't matter, I'm going to Hamlin. Like, even though I'm applying to all these other great schools that would have been a great experience for me, it just sort of felt right before it even could feel right. And then I got into Hamlin, which was wonderful. I got some scholarships and some grants to be there, which was necessary for me as a first generation college student. So the pieces sort of just fell into place. But the real reason is that one moment I stepped on campus for the first time as a 16-year-old and felt what college could be like.
That's incredible. See, it was just the feeling that you got. That's it.
Yeah, feeling, man.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. And my apologies to all the alumni of Hamlin. I'm going to pronounce it correctly. I promise.
I graduated college with 300 people. So the alumni body of Hamlin's not a large body. I don't think they're going to come take you down. I think we're all the mighty force. I think you're going to be safe.
I'm going to get all these angry letters and emails, and I'm going to be like, I'm sorry. I wasn't intentional. Please forgive me. All right. So then you earned your master's degree in college student personnel administration from Illinois State. So how is that experience different from your undergrad experience?
Well, it was a lot different. It was a lot different. I made the very last minute choice, like March of my senior year of college, to go to grad school for student affairs instead of going to law school, which was the plan. I took the LSAT, I applied, I got in, I paid deposits. And then had a quarter life crisis at 22 and was like, you ever met a happy law student? No.
Never.
No. So I was like, I don't want to go to law school. I want to be a lawyer, but going to law school sounds miserable. And I was a really involved student leader. And one of the people that worked in the office was he was the director of orientation. And he was like, Tina, you could do what I do. And I was like, oh, you get paid? That was when I realized that student affairs was a job. I'm working around all these student affairs professionals my whole life and didn't even put the two and two together. He's like, not only is it paid, it's a master's degree. And he graduated from that program. And so he printed off the paperwork. I applied that week on a whim. I got in, and that was that. It was the only grad school I applied to. It was the only program. I didn't do any research. It was just and I was a very type A, so this was very not Tina to make this very flippant last minute decision, but it ended up working out beautifully. It was really important for me. Grad school was, I don't think I'm allowed to say this here, but grad school is really hard, but nobody tells you that it's really hard.
Right.
Everyone's like, you're a great leader. You'll do great in student affairs grad school. But to do well in student affairs grad school, you're doing a lot of learning about what college students go through, which means you're learning a lot about what you went through and didn't even realize it because you were just going through it. And so it's all just digging up your own garbage. It's a lot, right? You're just oh, I was like that. Oh my God. Oh, this theory that I'm learning is so it's a process. For me, it was really emotional. It was really exhausting. You're also working, not necessarily full-time, but you're supposed to work 20 hours a week, and that's not really ever how it works. And so, but it was also the first time I was surrounded by people who were 100% passionate about the same thing that I was. And that was really special. That's what I think for me, why those friendships are still in my life, why I care so much about those humans, and why grad school changed me. Because yes, it was a super emotional, super exhausting, hard 2 years, but the people I took away from it, I have more close friends from grad school than I do from college, because it really felt like we as a cohort were in the trenches together, we're learning together, and we're falling in love with this field together. And it was empowering to me that I could be surrounded by people who all care about the same things, as opposed to being around people who all care, but about a lot of different stuff. So that for me was one of the biggest differences. I also went to college in the metro area of St. Paul, Minnesota, which is the capital city, and it's an actual city. And Illinois State University is in a delightful college town in the middle of Illinois, surrounded by cornfields. I've never seen that much corn in my life. It's just a rural place for a city kid to go to school. So that was also different than my college experience.
That's really good feedback for all the undergrads that are listening right now, contemplating this degree in student affairs. That's really good for them to hear, I think.
It's worth it. It's worth it. Just buckle up.
Yeah, buckle
Buckle
up.
up.
It's going to be some work.
Higher ed, Mike?
It's going to be some work. For me, it was just a very different path, I think. For me, it was like, because I didn't do any kind of master's program after my undergrad. For me, it was get into the workforce, start making money, have a family, do all of that stuff. And then eventually, just based on the relationships that I made here in Tennessee, suddenly I'm really close friends with all of these administrators at Cumberland University, which is a small university with about 2,200 or so students, that happen to be really close to the Sigma Pi headquarters in Lebanon, Tennessee. And suddenly I'm friends with the president of the university, who happens to be a Sigma Chi, and I'm friends with the vice president of the university, who happens to be a Kappa Sigma and was a former national president for Kappa Sigma. And then the guy who's in charge of development is a guy who used to work for the Educational Foundation at Phi Delta Theta. So it's like we had our own little fraternity, and suddenly it was like, well, why don't you come here and get your master's degree in public service management, and you'll have this cohort very similar to the experience that you had, that we were just in the trenches together, and we had a fantastic time. And I ended up getting my master's degree there at Cumberland. So it's just weird how things happen in life, just like you didn't really give it tons of thought, even though ordinarily you probably would, but you just went to Illinois State because that was just the thing to do, and it felt right. And same thing with Cumberland University. I don't think that I did a ton of research. It just felt right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And it is a beautiful campus. I've been there.
Yes, it is. It is a really, really pretty campus. It's getting better every single time I look at it. And President Stum has plans to grow the university up to 3,500 students. And if anybody can do it, it's President Stum. So I'm really proud of what they're building here at Cumberland. Love the people, love the campus. And when you're close to Nashville, it's pretty good.
Well,
it is pretty good. So let's talk about Alpha Gamma Delta, because you've done a ton of work for them, right? You started as a resident supervisor for Beta Omicron chapter. Then you were an education specialist for headquarters. So I'm sure there's a lot of undergraduates here listening, and they're hearing these positions: resident supervisor, educational specialist. What types of things were you working on in these positions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know if you know this. This is a fun fact. I'm an alumni initiate. I did not have an undergraduate Greek experience. So
and neither did James, which we learned in the interview. I had no idea.
We're meant to be, y'all. This is it.
Yes.
So I went to a small private liberal arts institution that we didn't have fraternities and sororities. There was one fraternity on campus, but there were not sororities that I was aware of. And honestly, this is hilarious given what I do now in my job, but if you had told me that I was going to be somebody that actively sought out groups of women to spend time with, I would have laughed in your face, because I was a tomboy. All my friends were men. Like, sorority was the opposite of who I was, how I identified in the world. It didn't make any sense to me. And then when I decided to go to grad school on a whim and realized I was moving to the middle of nowhere in the cornfields and didn't know a single soul there, I was like looking at my advisor one day being like, where am I going to live? He was like, well, you should be a house mom for a sorority. And I was like house bunny? Like, is that a real job? Is that an actual thing? Turns out, real job. Fun fact. Most sorority houses have an adult of some sort that are not students that live in them to make sure that the women are safe and make sure somebody's there to, like, if the smoke alarm goes off, and take care of the temperature in the house, and, make sure that everybody is okay. And all of the sorority houses at Illinois State had a resident supervisor or a house mom position in them. And I applied to a couple of them, and the group that ended up offering me the position was Alpha Gamma Delta at Illinois State University. And I moved into that house, sure it was going to be the worst experience of my life, that I was going to break up pillow fights and hold back hair as people threw up. Like, that was all the stereotypes were in my brain of what this sorority experience was going to be like. Turns out sorority is much more than that. And the women, there were about 35 women in my house that year. And these women were kind and brilliant and wonderful and treated me with love and respect, and like immediately made me feel like I had a family in a place where I didn't know a single person. And so that is, for me, flipped everything. Those women changed my whole life. I would not be doing my job. I would not be a member of a sorority if it weren't for those women. And so because of those women, when Alpha Gamma Delta headquarters had a job opening as I was getting my master's degree, I applied because I heard about it from my boss at the chapter house. And I applied to write curriculum for Alpha Gamma Delta headquarters. So all the programs that college students experience that headquarters send to the chapter, those are the kinds of things I was writing. So I was doing a lot of work for seniors, how to keep them engaged. I was doing work about mental health, abusive relationships, body image, just sort of all matters of helping our women have an educational sorority experience. And I got that job because of my role as a house mom at Illinois State. And then while I was on staff at Alpha Gamma Delta headquarters, they asked if they could initiate me. And I was initiated at an international convention in front of 1,000 Alpha Gamma Deltas while I was on staff.
That must have been the coolest experience. Am I right?
It was the coolest. It was one of the coolest. I will never forget that day. I will never forget that day. Because this is a universal thing for sororities, at least. I don't think they tell the men this, but in the sorority world, the one thing they tell you about initiation is don't lock your knees. That's the one thing they don't give you any other information about what's about to happen to you. They just say, don't lock your knees. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if you're 18 or 25, you're standing outside the doors being like, are my knees locked right now? Am I doing this wrong? And you have no idea what's about to happen. And then I went into this ballroom and had this really powerful experience. I will never forget my initiation. I will never forget how I felt afterward. But that was one of the first days that I knew what sisterhood meant. That was one of the first days that I understood that word in a really powerful, personal way. So yeah, that was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life.
That's awesome. And I think that's a great message for our listeners too. If there is somebody in your life that is helping your fraternity or helping your sorority and they've never been initiated into any organization, you might want to consider it, because we have amazing people like James and Tina that come out of this process that I'm so grateful for, because I'm like, what would the circuit look like if not for James and Tina making us laugh this whole time? I mean, we would have lost out. We would have lost out, period.
Well, and where would we be, right? Like, so much about the adults that we have become, right? I got initiated almost 10 years ago, and I'm still like, there is still such a huge part of my life, my career, my friend group, like so many parts of my life can connect back to Alpha Gamma Delta. Mm-hmm. So where would we be, and how would we be the people that we are in the world? There are like alumni initiates is such a cool way to bring women in together, right? And we think if you don't do it at 18 years old, you're never going to get to do it. And I tell my mom, I tell my grandma, like every adult woman who is even like kind of working with sororities, I'm like, have you ever thought about this? Totally worth your time, because it changed my world.
That's so great. I love that you said that. That's incredible. And you made this transition to organizational growth expert with our good friends, and I'll use the PH in friends, at PhiredUp. And I love them at PhiredUp. I love the whole crew. How did that experience at PhiredUp shape your career as a speaker?
Dramatically shaped my career. Mm-hmm. I would not be where I am if it were not for PhiredUp. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Because first of all, I didn't even know you could be a speaker. Like, I didn't know that just like I didn't know you could be a student affairs professional. Like, I didn't know that was a job until PhiredUp told me it was a job. And then I was like, oh, that's the job. Like, that's what I want to do. That's it. And I actually applied to work for PhiredUp that same year. I applied to work for Alpha Gamma headquarters and did not get hired to work for PhiredUp the first time. Worked for Alpha Gamma for 2 years, and then they had the position open again, and I applied again. And so that time I got the job. And so because I had to work extra hard to get it, I knew what it meant. It meant a lot to me to be selected. There's just such a freaking talented group of humans. Yeah. And to be counted in that talented group of humans made me feel like this thing that I always liked to do, right? Talking, or the thing that I always thought I was good at. Like, I didn't know that I could turn that into a career. I didn't know that my talent could parlay into something that meaningful. until I was surrounded by all these talented humans who were doing it, like actively really doing it. And so first of all, they like gave me permission to dream about what that could be like. And so that was one of the biggest transitions for me, was that I didn't have to work as a university dean of students, which would have been a great job, but I would not have been as good at it as I am at the work that I currently do, right? Yeah. So that was really helpful, but also they're just some of the best speakers in the business, right? Like they just, especially when I was there, the team of people that was working there were just unbelievably talented. Yeah. I am a good speaker because I was surrounded by all that talent, and they all just were just like pouring into each other, right? Like I know I'm good at my job because they helped make me good at my job. Like I know I have talent, but they taught me how to hone it and use it and create meaningful experiences. And I would not be where I am if they had not taught me how to do that. They made me a great speaker. I'm really grateful for my time at Fire.
It's so funny because I actually have a similar experience. I know you might not believe that, but the truth is that when I was over at the fraternity headquarters, I hired Josh to come out and speak to our members during a leadership conference. And I remember sitting there looking at that as executive director of the fraternity. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is absolutely incredible. Like, Josh has these guys in a spot where they're literally hanging on every word that he says. Yes. And I knew it. Like, you can see it, you can feel it. And I'm like, this is incredible. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is it. This is it. And so when the opportunity presented itself to make that a reality, for me, you know, I wanted to jump at that because I knew that we had the opportunity to change lives. And until you see what that looks like, just like you said, you don't even know that that's a position that could be you, right?
Yeah, 100% true. And that's why when people like, I know you get this a lot too. People ask all the time, like, how do you do your job? Like, you said this is your job. Can I do this as a job? Like, I'll take that phone call every day because PhiredUp essentially took that phone call for me, and like, I would not be here. And I like Josh, Matt, Jessica, Jordan Williams, like I have these moments that I worked for them, especially very early on, where I vividly remember them teaching me something that I still think about every day.
Yeah.
Right. Like I still think about it every time I get on stage. Like with Josh, was something about like making sure you know the material, but if you're not having fun, they're not having fun. Yeah. And it was like this moment for me. I was like, oh, duh. So like, if I'm having a bad time on stage, my audience is probably having a really bad time with me. And Josh teaching me that in that moment shapes the way that I do my job right now. And so just to be around people who are that good and that influential, of course it changed your life, right? That's their job. That's why they're great at it. And that's why they've been doing it for so long, because they're excellent at it.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit more about recruitment, because we've both seen a ton of recruitment videos in our time. And I've seen some with glitter. I've even seen the speedboats. That's probably not reflective of a normal day in sorority life. I think we can both agree on that.
No, I think they live on helicopters and jump into speedboats and all wear bikinis all the time. I don't understand.
That happens all the time at Alpha Gamma Delta. So how do we help women tear down the walls between other women to finally have some real honest conversations and authentic conversations? How do we make that happen?
Well, to be truthful, I think quarantine's helping. And you know this, we've had to switch to virtual programming, right? Like we're not out on the road, meeting at conferences, we're Zooming, right? Like this is it.
This is it right here.
This is it. And this is what recruitment has been like for this fall, especially. And I think that it is helping. I'm talking to campuses and women who normally have a really superficial or very competitive recruitment experience, a lot of tier talks, like are they a top tier sorority or bottom, right? Like a lot of that garbage. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that has gone, because even if you have the world's most glitzy, whatever video that you've ever seen in your life, if you can't show up and be engaging and captivating and fun to talk to in a 3x3 square on a Zoom, then your speedboat's cute, but why would I join your chapter? And so because I can't be dazzled by the house or how beautiful these women are or how perfectly coordinated their outfits are, I just like all I have to be dazzled by is what you show me in this little tiny box, which is like your collarbones up. And you frankly might not be wearing pants right now, Mike. I don't know, because we're on Zoom. And the same thing is true in recruitment. Like I couldn't judge your outfit and whether or not you were wearing Jack Rogers because I don't get to see that. It's like, Did you watch Love is Blind at the beginning of quarantine on Netflix that everybody was talking about? It was like this like dating show, but they couldn't see each other. We're not quite there in the sorority recruitment world, but this has moved us much closer to that. I can't see what you look like. I can't see what your body's like. I can't see the house you live in. All I have to go off of is this conversation, and what you give me in this conversation is going to determine if I join your chapter or not. And so I think that has helped. I think we are moving closer. I think next time we should just do full on Love is Blind. Let's go. Let's build some walls and just like talk to them and see what happens. But the world isn't always ready for Tina. So I think we should be recruiting in pajamas personally, Mike, but NPC ain't ready for me all the time. So we'll see.
I think you're onto something, because on the men's side, I mean, it's always been about the events, and, you know, we have to put on these big events in order to recruit other men. And I'm like, it's all about the relationship. No one cares about your event. Most people are scared to go to the event. Forget about the events. It's about the relationship. Think about why you joined. You know, for me, it was this guy named Rich who had this tattoo of the fraternity on his leg, and I had to ask him about it, and that started a conversation. It's all about the relationship. I wanted to hang out with Rich. I didn't care about the events. The events didn't matter to me. It doesn't matter.
Like he could have had any letters tattooed on his leg. It didn't matter, right? Like it wasn't
didn't matter. It could have been any set of letters. It was about the relationship. I didn't care about any of that stuff. I wanted to hang out with Rich more often. He spent literally every, day during the week working out with me at the gym, showing me the ropes at the gym and how to get stronger and how to whatever, look my best. And I was into it, and I was like, all right, we're going to do this. And we did that for 6 months. And then he said, are you going to come to a recruitment event? And I'm like, of course. We've been hanging out every day. Why wouldn't I go with you to this recruitment event? It didn't matter about the letters. It didn't matter about the events. It was just to hang out with Rich. That's all that mattered to me. So anyway, so I agree with you. I think now we can really start getting back to the focus on the values of the organization and what's real and authentic, instead of the house, instead of the events and all this other stuff that really has nothing to do with the brotherhood or sisterhood.
100%. And I think we'll see, I've been saying since quarantine started, the chapters that will thrive in all of this are the ones that have sisterhood built on actual relationships and not drunken relationships. Because if we can't all go to the parties together, those are the chapters. If that's the only way we bond, then the chapter's not going to make it. Because frankly, you're all going to get COVID and you physically won't make it. Or you just can't survive as a group of women if you require alcohol to socialize, right? So the chapters that are able to cultivate sisterhood, even on Zoom, are the chapters that are going to survive and thrive and be successful at all this.
Yeah. But here's my concern about recruitment now during COVID, because you know that a lot of people have lost their jobs. So I think the economics of this is going to really hurt in the short term. So I'm wondering, how can we create a sorority experience that every woman wants, every woman deserves, when things like social status or how much money they have in their bank account, or sometimes even their backgrounds, will prevent people from participating in the sorority?
That's an excellent question. Unfortunately, part of the answer is that we need to reckon with the fact that those things are true, right? You can't really deal with your barriers to membership if you don't acknowledge that there are actual barriers to membership, right? So like, for instance, a lot of women this summer asked me, how do we get more women of color to join our chapter, right? We want our chapter to be a safe place for women of color. How do we do that? Well, that's not the answer, because you don't get to decide if your chapter is a safe place for women of color. Women of color get to decide that. Your job isn't to just recruit more Black and brown women. Your job is to be the best white allies you can be, to do the work, to learn about how you make some of the barriers that might keep women of color from wanting to feel safe, eliminating those barriers. And if they feel safe, they'll come to you, right? So it's a matter of, we have to acknowledge that those things are a problem in the first place in order for us to move through them. But the other thing for me, it's a really fun conversation to have this summer, is the word sorority is problematic. Because when any person, let's say any young woman, hears the word sorority, she thinks Legally Blonde, she thinks Greek on television, she thinks traditionally blonde, traditionally thin, traditionally wealthy, traditionally popular, right? Like maybe even traditionally mean, like this archetype of what sorority has been created in the media. And the truth of the matter is that that word can be alienating. Like there are women that hear, like me, you would have said sorority and I'd have been like, absolutely not, no thank you. You would have told me it's a group of women who are all feminists, who are badasses, who believe in each other and lift each other up. That's a whole nother conversation.
I'm in.
But that's not what you told me. You said sorority. So what I've been trying to help women do, especially as they're recruiting all year round now because numbers are low, is what if we stopped selling sorority and started selling sisterhood? Like you said in the beginning, I believe that women need women. I believe that every single woman in the world, regardless of her background, deserves sisterhood. Passionate, fierce, badass friendships with other women. And we can provide that without all the costs and glitz and glam of sorority. We can create those experiences if we take some of the sorority traditions, some of the sorority expectations out of it. And we just invest in the real reason people join, like you said, the relationship, the real reason people stay, the real reason these organizations change people's lives. It's the people. It's not my letters or even my creed or my ritual. It's the women that have come into my world. And if we started talking about the experience like that instead of like a sorority, I think it would lower some of those barriers. Let's stop selling the sorority and start inviting people to our sisterhood. And how many more women would want to join that?
God, that's beautiful. Oh, preach. All right. Well, that's fantastic. Let's talk about something else that I know is an issue, because I think it's unfair, and I also think it's unhealthy that right now women are made to feel like their bodies aren't good enough. And I think if we look at some of the reasons why, certainly social media, whether it be Instagram or you name whatever social media, the magazine photo shoots that I'm seeing, even the diet industry, I think can be blamed for why women feel the way that they feel. So how can we promote positive body image for women and learn ways to talk about it within our sisterhood?
Well, those questions sort of answer one another, because I think the truthful answer is that we have to talk about it. It's just something we don't even think about it anymore because we are so used to absorbing these messages that we're not good enough. Every piece of makeup, every piece of clothing, every piece of hair everything that is sold to women is sold under the guise of, hey, you're not quite good enough, but if you buy this, you might be. And we are so inundated with those messages that we don't even think about them anymore. We don't even think about them anymore. We just accept it that, oh, I guess if I lost 10 pounds, I really would be happier. Like we don't even question it. It's just a fact of our culture. And the truth of the matter is, if we don't create spaces to talk about our bodies more often, then we're never going to break from the cycles. I'm never going to realize that I'm being sold all this crap because they're placating, they're preying on the fact that as a woman, I'm not supposed to like myself. That's why I buy your product, right? Like you mentioned diet industry, which is one of my nemesises in the world. The diet and weight loss industry makes $40 billion a year. Crazy. Most of that money they make is from women. And $40 billion a year, not once, every year, which means they know it doesn't work. If it worked, they would have made $40 billion one time. And then the rest of us would have stopped paying for it because it worked. But it doesn't work. It just it's designed to make you hate yourself. So you keep hating yourself enough to pay for these programs and go to the gym. And honestly, like I was an impacted person by the diet industry, and learning that I'm not broken. The system is. Learning that I don't have to hate myself every time I look in the mirror changed my life, like genuinely changed my life. And so, but the only way that happened was that I was surrounded by other women who were willing to talk about it, and not just like, oh my God, what's your diet this week? But like talk about it and how these images were impacting us. And those conversations changed everything for me in my world. And so those conversations, I think, were the game changer. And those are the conversations I want to teach women to have in their chapters. I want you to talk about these images that you're seeing all the time. I want you to talk about what you're missing here, because if we have those conversations, then we can move through it to the other side where we don't hate ourselves. And that's really, it's a lofty goal, but if women could go through life without hating their bodies, I think it'd be a better life for everybody.
Amazing. You're absolutely perfect. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So right now, recruitment feels very confusing to the undergraduates. I think it feels very overwhelming in a virtual format. I'm getting texts right and left. Right before our conversation, I'm getting texts just saying that I'm overwhelmed by all of this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel comfortable. So how do we do recruitment without in-person events?
Well, this goes back to what we already talked about, right? You just have to talk to each other. Like, this is it. And Tina, choose your words. This is it. And this feels really hard and scary and new and different. But the truth is that I don't have to look any farther than the apps on your phone, college students, to know that you know how to do this. You all got Tinder? You all got Bumble? You got Grindr? You got Hinge? You know exactly how to build a relationship from scratch on the internet. You know exactly how to do this. The context is different, so it feels different. But it is the exact same skill set. It is the exact same skill set. And even if you don't online date, every relationship in our lives has a virtual component to it. Your teachers, your parents, your friends, your significant, like they're texting, video chatting, like you do that with every relationship in your life, every single one. So this feels super different, but it's not. You have all of the skills, all of the abilities to do it. It's just a matter of like, you just have to do it. Right. And as soon as we acknowledge that we do this all the time, it stops feeling weird because it's really not that weird. We do it all the time. So that's my biggest thing. It's like, just, you're good at this already. Accept it. You're good at it. Move on. Like, you got this. It is not a problem.
Gotcha. All right. I think that's good advice. I think that's really good. Now, on the corporate. Yeah.
1 second. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. You are good. You are good. No problem at all. We are back here with Tina. And I know that you do some work on the corporate side of things as well. And I've been reading about what's going on the corporate world. I was thinking about airlines this morning. I was thinking about hotels this morning. And there's all kinds of cuts that are going on. People are being furloughed. People are being laid off. I feel like right now, today in the corporate world, it's filled with a lot of focus on the bottom line. But somehow I think we've lost sight of our people and investing in our people. So how can today's leaders choose empathy, especially right now? And how will that serve our leaders well going forward?
There's no bottom line if you don't have people. There's no product if you don't have people to sell it or create it or distribute it, or right? Like, now, obviously, I say that in a world that's mostly virtual, robots are being created to do other jobs, right? But like, the truth of the matter is the human element is what makes industry successful, right? Like, the world's most successful airlines are because they have excellent people on the front lines. I don't know anything about Ed Bastian, but I know that Delta is my favorite airline because I get treated the best when I work with Delta, right? And so the people element is the successful part of every single company. And so if bottom line is where we're focusing, if bottom line, and frankly right now is where we need to be focusing because the economy has just been completely rocked, right? So anybody looking at their bottom line and feeling stressed, I don't think is like, we are business owners. We're a small business owner. And so like, we had to do the same thing. Can we keep employing our human that we love to work with? And part of that meant that we had to make sacrifices to keep our human to be able to work with us, right? But it wasn't about like, can we achieve this because money matters most? It was like, this person matters in our life. This person matters in our business. This person's life matters. I am not a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I'm a very, very small business owner. But I think in general, I think a lot of the leadership lessons we learn in college are the ones we need to take with us into the adult world. We just get so lost in the adult world, we forget. And one of the lessons I learned as a college student was that I was so busy trying to be a leader and like be the most efficient and the most productive and the most successful and achieve the most stuff that I forgot that there were real people working for me. And turns out you can't be the most successful, the most efficient, the most effective if the people working for you don't want to work for you, don't like to work there. Then you have no loyalty, then you have no retention, then you can't. So everything comes back to human beings and making sure that the place that they work is a place that makes them feel proud to work there. And the same thing, I teach the same thing to sorority leaders, right? I can teach you how to give a better Zoom presentation. I can teach you how to recruit effectively. But if you don't care about your sisters, why would they stay? And the exact same thing translates as we get into the corporate world. If those people don't feel cared about, if they don't feel valued at this place, why would they stay? And so when empathy comes into place there, it's remembering, like, put myself, when I had to make a decision about our employee, put myself in her shoes. Imagine her experience happening to my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I can do that, when I can connect with her humanity, then it becomes less about the bottom dollar and more about that person. Empathy is just acknowledging the humanity in other humans, and we're connecting with it. And every single one of those people who works for you is a person with their own humanity, their own bottom line, their own life. And I think corporate world, I think fraternity and sorority, I think the world in general right now could benefit from some empathy and some humanity.
Amen. Absolutely agree. And you're right. I think it's a good time to talk about empathy now that we're in recruitment, because as you know, it's all about our purpose as fraternity and sororities, and it's all about our people. And if you can do those two things, then I think people are just going to come to you, right? They're going to want to be a part of this great movement that we're selling.
Well, yeah, and you're a small business owner, right? So like you've got a whole team of people who report to you.
I do.
And so I would imagine that this plays a role in the work that you do too.
100%. It absolutely does. And you know what? That's what I pride myself the most. I mean, our team, it's unbelievable to me that our team has grown to 14 speakers now. I never in a million years would I have thought that. I started it. It was just me. And then I realized that I couldn't be everywhere. I wasn't able to effectively, from a risk management standpoint, get my hands on every campus. It was just physically impossible because I'm just one guy. And so the team started growing and all these different specialties started coming in that I didn't have. I just had to be honest with myself about the tools that I have and what I really don't have. I'd like to think that I can do everything, but the reality is I can't. And there are other people who do other things better than I can. And I think what I pride myself the most in is my people and how successful they've become. I think about some of the speakers that I've worked with. And I don't want to get into names and things like that, but just in terms of just being a mentor to them, getting the best out of them in terms of what they're going to talk about on stage, and seeing their growth over the last few years will blow your mind. I mean, them writing a book, which is, as you know, that's a life-changing thing to have your published book that you can go with. And whatever I've done to motivate them to do those things, to publish their book, to get their voice out on stages all across the country, I'm seeing like a significant difference in their confidence and their abilities on stage. And that is what is most meaningful to me. The dollars doesn't really matter to me. It's the change that we're able to make together on college campuses, and also for these speakers, and the improvement that I've seen in their skills is night and day. And I remember, because we have these annual meetings at Greek University every year where we all come together. This year, of course, was Zoom because we couldn't be physically together in Nashville like we all wanted to. But I just sat back thinking after the entire weekend going, holy cow, this team is a team of absolute rock stars. And I would put them against anybody in the business because just the growth that I've seen is incredible. And we all knew it. We all knew it. And so that's what gives me the most amount of satisfaction. It's not the money that we made over the last 5 years. It's the lives that we've changed and the safer campuses that we leave.
And I don't think you would have made the money or made as much change if those people didn't value working with you.
That's correct.
Right? If they didn't feel poured into, cared for, why would they stay? Why would they stay? Especially these younger generations. Like, I don't want to go to a job that I hate every day where I feel like crap about myself. I want to go to a job where I feel valued, cared for, and invested in. Right. And if we can do that for our people, then they'll go and travel the country and make you money and do all of the things that we want productive businesses to do. But they have to feel like they matter first. So
that's why they stay. That's why we're able to attract top talent. It's because of that. It's because I care about my people, and everybody on the team knows that. They know that deep inside that I care about them as a human being, and I'm going to invest everything that I've got in them, and they all know it. And I think that is probably the one reason why we've been able to grow so much.
Oh yeah, I love it.
So anyway, so that's really good. Let's talk about food, because I absolutely love food here at Fraternity Foodie. And your husband, just for the record, he is taking me to Matt's Bar for a burger in Minneapolis. Now, I looked online, I looked at the photos of the place. I was a little scared.
That's a fun fact about my husband. He believes the closer the restaurant is to looking like it's about to fall down, the better the food is going to be. That is a
I
genuine
was,
belief.
yeah, I'm afraid that the walls were going to come in on me. So I was wondering, is there another place maybe that you would recommend that we check out in Minneapolis?
Well, so the reason he's taking you there is because, fun fact, the Juicy Lucy was invented here in Minnesota. Juicy Lucy is a burger with a bunch of cheese on the inside. You grill the burger and then you bite into it, and the molten hot, delicious cheese comes out of it, and it's amazing and delightful.
Got it.
Lots of dairy over here in the Midwest. We got a lot to do with it, so we just shoved it inside of a burger. So what I would take you is to the rival, like the who invented the Juicy Lucy, from which bar did it come is the question. And I don't know if it's ever actually been answered. Some books will tell you that Minneapolis and Matt's Bar is the place. Some places will tell you that the Nook in St. Paul is actually the origin of the Juicy Lucy. And St. Paul is where Hamlin is. St. Paul is of the Twin Cities that are pretty much just one giant city, but two smaller cities broken in half by the Mississippi River. St. Paul is my side of the river. It's one of my favorite places in the world. And so I would take you to the St. Paul version of that burger. But I think, Mike, you're going to have to come try both and then settle the debate between James and I. That would be really helpful. And if we can get you some deep fried cheese curds on the way, then I'm going to call myself
more dairy.
More dairy. When in doubt. Sorry for you who are lactose intolerant. I don't know how to help you.
All right.
We have
I
salad
think
in Minnesota. Salad somewhere.
this sounds like a plan. I'm going to go to both places. We're going to settle this debate. And I love it because as somebody who went to school in Buffalo, like there's all this debate over the chicken wing. Like, where did it start? Who perfected it? You can go to Anchor Bar. You can go to Duff's. I'm a big Duff's guy. I swear by it. I think it's the better chicken wing. But truth be told, it was invented at Anchor Bar. So you kind of have to try them both to see where you're at.
Let's go. Well, look up the Nook. It's a little less close to falling down. A little bit more still well-established architecture happening in the Nook. So even that'll by itself make you feel right at home.
Yeah, I want to be a little safe when I'm eating this burger, but it sounds absolutely delicious. So that's really good. All right, so this has been absolutely amazing. If people who are listening, and there's literally going to be thousands of people that are going to be listening to this interview, so no pressure. But if members of our audience want to bring you to speak on their campus, or they want to follow you on social media, where should they go?
Well, social media, first of all, I'm worth a follow, friends. I'm adorable. My husband's attractive. We have a cute little dog. Like, what else do you want in life? That's all the content I have for you. But I'm pretty sure it's content worth following. So Tina Ray Van on Instagram. Ray is my middle name, and it's spelled R-A-E. Tina Ray Van is my Instagram. Bonus, also my website, tinarayvan.com. Keeping it real simple for everybody out there. And I love working with women. So listen, gentlemen, if you enjoyed me, go listen to my husband's interview and then bring him to campus because that's his side of the house. But I stick with the ladies. So I would love to come help you develop meaningful sisterhood, dismantle diet culture, and talk about body image. We can dismantle racism while we're at it. Let's get to work. Women got a lot of world changing to do. So let's get together and start going. I'm in for it. So find me at Tina Ray Van anywhere. I'm always happy to have a conversation.
I love it. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I've learned so much just in this time. And so this has been absolutely great. Thank you so much. You are a rock star. I am like your biggest fan. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of Fraternity and Sorority Life, because what you bring is just absolutely tremendous. And I'm just honored to know you. I'm honored to be your friend, and I would have a burger with you anytime.
I really appreciate that. And a burger and a bourbon.
And a bourbon, 100%. I mean, why are we going to leave out the bourbon?
How could we? I would never personally. So I'm sold. I'm totally in. And thank you for having me. Thank you for your badass team of speakers who's changing the world one day at a time. And I appreciate you a lot.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. And if for any of our listeners, if you like this, please like it and share it. We want this to go everywhere. So we appreciate you checking us out, and we hope to see you on another episode of Fraternity Foodie. Bye for now.
Bye.